My name is Frode Solberg, and I am ambassador to the Republic of Korea, and I've been here now a little less than a year. I came in June last year, but I met His Excellency the President to deliver my credentials on the 25th of July, so almost a year.
Very nice to meet you.
Thanks the same. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So this year marks 60 years of diplomatic relations between Korea and Norway. Just to kick off the interview, could you assess this relationship between our two countries?
Well, it has grown into a very both important, deep, and relations of a wide variety of different areas. I think, as you said, we're marking the 60 years of diplomatic relations this year. Actually, I think it would be good to go back all the way to the Korean War, actually, to when Norway was here, participated with the Normash, the field hospital that was here, and I think that was a very important part on the build-up of the Norwegian-Korean relations, because we found that it was an important participation, of course. We had been through a war ourselves. We knew how important it was to help others in the same situation. And I think that was many of the Norwegians, they were not here only during their assigned period, but decided to stay longer because they really enjoyed to be in the country. And that hospital moved into also the establishment of the National Medical Center after the war. And in 1959 we established diplomatic relations, and our relations have grown ever since, making Korea one of our most important trading partners, not only in Asia but in the entire world.
That's very good to hear. So based on this, 6 years of relations between the two countries, my understanding is that there are a number of events that are going to take place throughout this year. So this month I heard that a group of Norwegian K-pop students visited Seoul and had a great time, and there's a lineup of events to look forward to. Could you elaborate on those events and maybe tell us what you're looking forward to the most? Yes,
I can do that. I mean, I should perhaps also say that every year in the Norwegian-Korean relations are quite full of different events. This year a little bit more special, perhaps. As you said, we just had a visit from a Norwegian high school that is focusing on K-pop and Korean culture, which is a very nice aspect in all this. We already this year had quite a few cultural events. As always, we are focusing also on business promotion. Only next week we are focusing on renewable energy, and we have a seminar on offshore wind energy, which is quite an important area of hopefully our future cooperation. One highlight this year is also the let's say the official marking of the Constitution Day, as well as the 60 years of our close relations, which will take place on the 16th of May. One of the highlights in my mind is also the opening of the Normash exhibition on the Korean War Memorial Museum here in Seoul on the 28th of May. So throughout the summer we will have, until now, unpublished pictures from the Norwegian field hospital that was here. I think that will be both interesting. It will be a very a good way to remember our close relations. Also, as I mentioned before, we established our diplomatic relations, and then from the Korean War. Then we have a number of cultural events. We'll have a philharmonic orchestra coming from Trondheim in Norway in November. We have participation in the ceramics festival in Gyeonggi later this autumn. We're having performances here in the performing arts market here in Seoul in September. So there are many events. I should probably also say that it's not only in Seoul. We try to be present in other parts of the country as well. Busan, Ulsan, Koche is a very important area for Norway, as our ties have been especially close in the maritime area. We share the same closeness to the oceans, and I think we have been building ships and oil rigs and gas rigs in Korea for many years. That also means that we have many companies here in Korea, Norwegian companies, delivering equipment and different kinds of services to the big shipyards. Meaning that many of the Norwegians living here are in that region. So we'll have quite a few events there as well, and not least focusing on business seminars, smart shipping, renewable energy, green shipping seminars, and then also a big Norway Day reception in the end of October. So we'll try to be present not only in Seoul but in other areas of this beautiful country as well.
Oh, sounds like an action-packed year, just in May alone.
Yes, that is true. So we like to keep ourselves busy, but that's also, I think it's important here in Korea. It's a very, I have to say, I feel very privileged to be able to serve, not in only in such a beautiful country, but also in such an exciting country, because I think the tempo and the dynamics of the Republic of Korea is something that impresses us all, and has impressed me a lot. There is high activity, high tempo, but I think that's also gives a lot of energy, so it's very exciting to be here.
Could you comment on the relationship between Korea and Norway in terms of renewable energies going forward?
Well, I think that is an area of great interest, and a new area where we can work closely together. Where Norway is a country with substantial resources within the fossil areas, natural gas and oil, but we also focus a lot on renewable energy. Also, the companies have that very high on their agenda. We're also in a lucky position to have lots of renewable energy resources in Norway. So we have long-standing experience in that area. And I think absolutely that is one of the areas where our combined interests, combined resources, combined expertise and competence can move this into a very important future cooperation. I know that Korea is standing in front of a transformation within the energy area, and renewable energy will of course be very important in the years to come. So I think this is one of the main areas. I think the maritime area, the traditional areas where we have worked together for many years, that will continue. But I think we see now a broadening into, for example, more climate-friendly solutions, energy being one of them, but also within those areas where we have the traditional cooperation within the shipping, to move into green shipping solutions, smarter shipping, research and development being a very important part of this. So I see a very bright future in the cooperation between our two countries, and not only because South Korea needs to focus more on renewable energy, but I think this is to the good for both nations and also the global society. I know the huge resources that is used in Korea every year on research and development in all areas, and I'm also very impressed about the dynamics, as I mentioned, of this society. So I think that this poses a great potential for a rapid change in many areas. And in that regard, I would also like to mention that the focus that we see among, for example, Korean car makers, Hyundai, Kia, Norway is probably now among the most important EV markets in the world. And there's a huge interest for Korean cars in Norway, and long waiting lists, up to 2 years waiting list for the Korean brands. But also I know the focus on hydrogen fuel cell technology. So I think within this area there's a great potential for future cooperation as well. So we are looking forward to going into the future hand in hand with Korea in these areas.
What is it about Korean electric vehicles that Norwegians love so much, that there's a 2-year wait for it.
Yeah, it's actually a very, very good story. And another story, because one thing is, of course, the importance of Korea for Norwegian companies, but Norway for Korean companies is, of course, equally important. And this is one of the areas where we have seen a huge development. Of course, Korean cars have been known in Norway many, many years, but I think also the EV market has changed. Why Norwegians are so fond of Korean cars? I think all EVs are being popular in Norway, but I think something happened with the Hyundai Kona, the Kia Niro, small and mid-sized SUVs, which is a type of car that is very popular in Norway. And I think also that the EV car market for some time, it has been politically very focused in Norway to have incentives to promote electric cars. But of course it has been challenging when you have cars with a range of perhaps 150 to 200 kilometers. Now we see cars like the Hyundai and Kia with a range of up to 450, 500 kilometers. And that totally changed the arena. There were cars with long range before them as well, but at a much higher cost. So I think when these brands and these cars were introduced about a year ago, I think that contributed in if not a change, but at least a huge interest for Korean cars in Norway.
And I guess, Norway is such a big country. You need those
you need
extra
range,
cars.
because one thing is to go to the office every now and then, but if you want to visit grandma in the weekend, you would like to go there, perhaps without being concerned that you will get there. So I think both the size and the type of car combined with this extended range that has meant a lot for the market in Norway.
So I hear that these days in Norway, the interest in Korea and Korean culture is very high. Could you comment on that?
It is very high, and I think that I should probably also say that the interest and the level of knowledge has been absolutely there for many, many years, not least because of our shared interest and shared cooperation within the maritime industry and in general within the commercial area. But it has developed over the last few years and has become K-pop, K-drama, K-arts in general has become very, very cool. I think not only in Asia, but in the entire world and in Norway as well. And I know about young people, they're sitting in nighttime chatting with their friends here in Seoul or in Korea, learning more about this very exciting culture and very exciting country. And I think it has developed sort of to the extent that Korea is very cool. And I think it's very good for Korea, and it's good for our bilateral relations as well, because that creates an interest among young people to learn more about this very exciting country, and that also means more interest to study here, and we see an increased interest for that. Tourism as well, and vice versa. Hopefully that will sort of benefit also in the increased interest of among students to go to Norway as well, because we need young people to develop our bilateral relations, and that's why I think that K-pop, K-culture in general has or will and has and will play a very important part in sort of bringing the bilateral relations even further.
So there are a lot of events that we can look forward to this year. What's something that we should be mindful of when we go to these Norwegian events?
Well, I think it's many things to learn. Having said that, I think that we share many of the same, some of the same history, some of the same interests. By same history, I mean that Norway was also a very poor nation until the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and has changed rapidly over the last 2-3 generations as well. So where I think the change is quite familiar in Norway as well. And so that's why, and the closeness to nature, the closeness to the mountains, the closeness to the oceans. So there are many things we share. But I think what could be useful to see in Norway is, of course, we have touched upon our sort of our focus on gender equality and to bring everybody in the society. But I also hope that it's possible to see that Norway is not that far away. It's not by far as cold as many people think. It's actually a relatively warm country. The summers in Norway are quite warm. The winters are quite special with the northern lights and the snow. So I think to discover Norway both as an interesting destination for commercial affairs and industry, but also a very interesting country to go on a vacation. So that's one of the areas that I hope that will be discovered. But I think the most important thing, that we are very close friends, very close trading partners, very close in most areas. I think that it's to build and confirm that relationship is important.